May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Geek Audio mini podcast. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have another outtake from Zen Right Now. More teaching, stories, and anecdotes of Shunryu Suzuki. So here we have a student saying, I'm going to go look and see who this was. I think I can find it. Yep, it's who I thought it was. It's Janet Sturgeon. And it's true what she says here. She says, Suzuki Roshi made comments about me and my many boyfriends. One evening, I was standing on the stairs at Page Street with Harriet Buffington. As Suzuki Roshi was about to pass us, he stopped, looked at us, and said, "You know, it's all right to have as many boyfriends as you want. You just have to remember every name." He said that to Alan Marlowe, too, who also had many lovers of both genders. Not while he was at Zen Center. At Tassajara, Alan would be pretty strict with himself in some ways. In others, he'd be on his own trip. But in that way, he didn't. But he was very extreme otherwise in his life in the outside world. But anyway, that's who we're talking about. We're talking about Jan. Well, we're talking about both of them, right? Because they were both, as she said, rather promiscuous at that point in their lives. And Alan, pretty much always, except when he was at Tassajara or living in the building. What I wonder is, where did Suzuki get this from? I mean, a lot of the things he said were part of the enormous reservoir of sayings and jokes and whatever from Japan. It could have been something he heard a student say to somebody else and thought was funny and just thought he'd repeat. He got stuff from us, too. But anyway, it sounds like, well, so what? It's just a joke. And that's true. It's just a passing comment. But what it points to is his attitude toward us and our different habits of having boyfriends and girlfriends and mating. And there was, people tend to, like when they're talking about some group or something, they'll say, everybody so-and-so, like everybody was screwing everybody else or everybody was taking drugs. It's not that way. It's there were some people who were very promiscuous. It was definitely a minority. And there were some people who were celibate. There were some people who were, the type of shy person or something who isn't really celibate, but isn't going to have a mate unless the time is right. A lot of people were concentrating on their practice and didn't want to get that complication. So there were all sorts of different, different levels of promiscuity, from none to lots. At Tassajara, Much less, of course, but there was there was a range there too, but it tended to be on the lower end, none or but couples would form there, and it was acceptable. There was a 6-month rule, but Richard Baker instituted that. That was when you come to Zen Center, and if you're living at the center or at Tassajara or something, you should, refrain from having a boyfriend or girlfriend or a mate or whatever for the first 6 months. You can concentrate on familiarizing yourself with the practice. And for those of us who were past the 6 months, it was leave people alone their first 6 months. And there we'd have a range of who followed that and who didn't. But mainly people following. And it was very promiscuous times. The entire time Suzuki was in America, arriving at the end of sort of the beatnik area. Now, the beatnik thing wasn't something to everybody, but to a large number of those in the subculture he was around, the beatnik phenomena. It was hardly a subculture. It was influential. And then there's post-beatnik, and then in the hippie thing starts happening, gradually in the early 60s, and getting into full bloom around 65, 66, 67. 67, I'd say, was the height. And but it continued, but there was a lot of declining of it, too, in some ways, but not with everybody. I mean, it continues now. But, all right, but the point here is that Suzuki was open to it. And he was a traditional Zen Buddhist Japanese teacher in America. That sort of permissiveness, I don't think there's any, there wasn't anything like that where he came from. There wasn't the Puritanism that America had. There was more of a don't ask, don't tell sort of thing. But anyway, a lot of teachers would encourage people to want their priests to be celibate, and there was a general idea in American culture, if you're going to study religion, be serious, you should be celibate or monogamous. And that idea was Zen Center somewhat. But he just, maybe he just gave up. This isn't my culture, but that tended to be his thing on pot. Was he wouldn't be against it. He just said, "Well, don't get high when you come here." But he'd seen all these people come and be interested in practice because of psychedelics, and so he and Katagiri both, they couldn't really put it down, but well, just leave it out of here, And Suzuki would say, well, they'll get it orders to get into practice. Well, I think he would have said he had the same feeling about mating, that as one gets into practice, one will will lose interest in being promiscuous. But he encouraged people who were going to be mating to choose one and to get married. just to choose one, and you could be an unmarried couple and be recognized. Anyway, you see what I mean? That his open-mindedness in that area was significant, and it would be very easy for a Zen center to have become an uptight puritanical organization, because that urge is deep in American culture. And anyway, that's enough. I'm just sort of rambling around that, but I think it's something I appreciate from him. Anyway, thank you. This has been a Cuke Audio mini podcast. I'm DC Pupa of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Senor with Dogette Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.